Last week, a transcript of the short message communications between the OceanGate Titan submarine and his ocean surface support vessel, Polar Prince, was released by several TikTokers and also a Pakistani educational YouTube channel. Now, we can't confirm its authenticity, and the internet seems to be divided. Some people think it's authentic, some people think it's fake because the regular news hasn't mentioned it yet. So let's do a deep dive on this transcript and see what it tells us, and we'll decide whether this is authentic or not. Now, you guys know me as an engineer. When I do these types of engineering failure analysis for you, I like to base it on, hard facts, evidence, photographs, engineering reports, contracts, whatever, building permits. I'm going to give it just a little indulgence and we'll see, and I'll tell you why. And the critics are going to come in here and say, you shouldn't be guessing and telling people this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Don't tell me that both you and me haven't, at some point here, put ourselves inside that sub and tried to figure out what was going on. Let our imaginations run wild. This transcript comes the closest to the scenarios that I think actually happened, and it seems to line up with the timestamps and everything. Let's take a look and let's see. And you let us know in the comments what you think after seeing this. So let's start at the beginning of the transcript. And remember, this is an unconfirmed transcript, so I'm going to keep telling you this throughout this video. In green will be the Polar Prince, which is the top, and the sub will be in yellow. So our very first timestamp is at 7:52, and the top says clear for descent, enjoy the ride. The sub says descending now, launch sequence complete, ready, and the top says all clear, and then they say proceedings. So at 8:01 a.m., the OceanGate Titan submarine began its descent downward towards the Titanic shipwreck. And then the top side said, enjoyed the dive, gentlemen. So next here at 8:19, about 20 minutes later, the top side says, you're 15 minutes into the dive, current depth. System check, please. And the sub reports back a minute or so later, system check complete, all in order, all lights are green, we are 756 proceeding. And now this is where I added my note here that I think they're going too fast, and we'll talk about that in a second. This could either mean that they're at 756 meters or that they are at 75.6 meters, and I doubt they're at 75.6. That would be way too shallow for the amount of time they've been in the water. Anyway, the top side says, thank you, proceed, and then about 34 minutes into the trip, the top side says, you're 30 minutes in, update please. And 8:34, again, this is almost a minute later, the sub says, all systems are functioning normally. We're in good shape, continuing our descent as planned. So it looks like everything's going fine. Everybody's happy. But let me point something out to you here at this point. This is the Titanic is at 3,800 meters. And this is why I think they're going too fast. The descent time is 2.5 hours to get down there. That's what James Cameron has done many times. And this is what it says on OceanGate's website. So at that rate, you're doing 3,800 meters divided by 2.5 hours, which means you're going at 1,520 meters per hour. And if you put that into minutes now, you divide that by 60, your average speed here should be 25.33 meters per minute. So just keep that speed in mind. That's how fast they should be going. So when I take that last timestamp where they checked in and said that they were at 756, here's what Titan's depth should be at that point in time. It should be 20 minutes in, right here, times 25 meters per minute, which gives you 532 meters. That should be their depth. Right now, they're at 756 meters, and they should not be that deep. So I am concluding at this point that the Titan sub is descending too fast. This is implying that this is the authentic transcript. Now, if this was fake and somebody would just made up numbers, then they might have been wrong and didn't do their math right, like I did right here. Okay, so moving on in the transcript, we're now 36 minutes into the trip, and the top says, superb, proceed. And at 8:49, they say, over the 45-minute mark, current depth, and confirm status. Now the sub replies back about 2 minutes later here. The sub depth is at 1934, all systems stable, and the descent is continuing as planned. Happy crew. And then the top side says, excellent. And then about almost 10 minutes later, they say you're at the hour mark, and the submarine says all is smooth in sailing here. And the sub says all is smooth sailing here. And what I want to look at here is this 1934 depth. Let's do a little math check on it. So here it is again, just repeated for you, the timestamp and the 1934 depth. Titan's depth should be at this point in time, 51 minutes times 25.33 meters per minute. 1,292 meters is where they should be. Where are they? They're at 1934 meters, so they're descending too fast, again, at this particular point in time, based on my estimate. And so now here at 9:15, about 15 minutes later, it says you are at 75 minutes depth. Do you need to adjust velocity? And the sub reports back, all under control at 2960. No adjustments needed. We're enjoying the ride. And the top says understood. So now let's analyze these numbers. So when I look at these numbers here it is repeated for you, the 2960. The Titan's depth should be, we're at 77 minutes times 25.33 meters, and we end up with 1950 meters. They should not be at 2960 meters. Remember, these guys are basically halfway through the trip, and they're already 3/4 of the way down. And I think here the sub is just still descending too fast. Now, here is our first sign of trouble, folks, for the Titan submarine. It occurs at 9:28 a.m. with this message on the timestamp. The sub says, we're noting an alarm from the RTM. And then about 20 seconds later, they type in reducing velocity, descent depth is at 3433 right now. So let's go take a look just real quickly at this and check this depth. And the Titan's depth should be, at this point, we're 88 minutes in, so it should be 88 minutes times 25.33 meters, which is 2229 meters. That should be how deep they are. But instead, they're at 3433 meters. They're 1200 meters deeper than expected based on all of the normal estimates, based on my math. And so now the OceanGate Titan sub is an hour early. They're 400 meters from the Titanic shipwreck site. And again, I'm telling you that the sub is descending too fast. Now, I showed you this in my previous video here on the Titan submarine disaster. This is the scale and the distance that they probably were from the Titanic, including how far off to the side, because they found them about 500 or 600 yards away, I believe. So they probably got around to this point. Now, they would not have been able to see this because it's pitch dark down there, and you can only see the Titanic once you're right up close to it and you turn your big bright lights on. They ride down in the dark, but this is the vantage point of where they were sitting when they had to turn around and go back up. They were this close. For those of you not familiar, RTM stands for Real-Time Monitoring System. Now, OceanGate had boasted about this on Instagram a few years ago, about how the system would detect their hull defects with incredible accuracy and well before the safety of the crew is threatened. And here's their post on Instagram right here, and it says, this real-time monitoring system samples sound waves through the hull many times per second, providing incredible accuracy and allowing us to assess the health of the hull during the dive. It says right here, which is ironic, that our extensive testing and that of many researchers over the last 20 years has shown that increased acoustic activity always occurs well before the structure fails. I guess that wasn't the case here in this particular disaster. What a shame. So anyway, now I've changed everything from the sub to be red since they are in crisis mode. So now the top says, understood. Do you need to ascend? So the sub replies back with no change with thrust. The rate of descent is increasing at 35 now. Going to release the ballast now. And the top says, yes, agree, release the ballast. And the sub says, no improvement. Preparing to jettison the frame. So something's happening. They've got too much weight apparently, and it's not slowing them down. So now they have to ditch this, I believe, is what they were getting rid of, is the frame. And the top says affirmative, update when able, RTM indicator status. So they're asking them again to tell them what that real-time monitoring system is telling them. And about almost 3 minutes later, the sub replies back with the frame jettisoned, multiple attempts needed, but starting the ascent now. So it looks like they're going up now. And apparently from other reports that we've seen, they have to line everybody up on one side of the submersible, which is strange, to drop the ballast weights. I don't know if they had to do the same thing here for this too, but it looked like something wasn't going right at first, and it took them several tries. So now the top side here is surprised, and they write, what? Multiple attempts? What is your status? RTM indicators in depth. They didn't get an answer, and a minute later, the top side comes back again. It says, update, please, when able. And then finally, here's the really ominous text from the sub. It says, crackling sound at aft. And that means back in the back side of the sub over here, is where they heard some type of crackling. They're not really sure where. It's in the aft, but remember, they're sitting in here, and there's probably a walled off section in here that has all the equipment that they can't see because it's behind the wall, and so who knows what was going on back in there. And then the top side replies back with, can you identify the source, ? And RTM indicators. So this is probably the third or fourth time they've asked them to give the RTM indicators, and the sub hasn't given that yet. Now the sub just writes neg. So really short, tersely worded, Same with back up here at this one. You'll notice they've ditched a lot of the punctuation. So that says to me that they're in some type of panic mode and they're just trying to do things as fast as they can. They're just typing with few words as possible now. And then again, the top side asks for the RTM status about 4 minutes later, after numerous attempts, as you can see, asking them. And the sub finally replies back 2 minutes later, trying to run diagnostics, ascending now, but very slow. Sounds have subsided. Global RTM alert active, all red. Now, when they say all red, I don't know how many LEDs they have. Do they have one for every sensor? He supposedly has at least, I thought I read a report somewhere that there was like 20 sensors. Does that mean there's 20 LED lights? We don't know. This does not sound good, especially where it says the sounds have subsided. You think, oh, that sounds like good news. But this, to me, global RTM alert active, all red. So that doesn't sound good. I would be just shaking in my boots at this point. Okay, so now the top side replies back with understood. Any codes? Question mark. Depth, ascent rate, and they didn't get an answer back, so they say updates when able, please. Then finally, the sub replies back and says slow ascent in progress. Quarter predicted. Unclear why rate is small. No indicator, and they're at 3476. So as we recall, they got as low as 35. Okay, so pay attention to this number because here they are at 3476. And remember, so they were at 3,500 meters before they started the ascent. So they've only gone, looks like about 24 or so meters here. And now at 9:44, the top comes back here and it says, we're talking it over with the engineer. Stand by. So they're trying to figure out why the rate of ascent is too small going up, and they're probably trying to figure out what's going on with these thrusters here. And so now at 9:45:11, the top says depth and status, please. They want to know what's going on. What's the wattage on the upwards thrust? And the sub replies back here at 9:46:37, reading red on the A power bus. I switched to B at 3457 meters and more sounds aft. So this is sounding really bad. So they're hearing the sounds again. The A power bus has already gone out, which means the battery was probably compromised or something there. So they switched over to the backup, which is B, as you see down here. So here's what is alarming to me. Look at their depth right here. 3457 meters. About 3 minutes ago, they were up here at 3476 meters. So the OceanGate Titan submarine, by this point in time, has only gone about 20 meters in 3 minutes. That's 60 feet in 3 minutes. That's way slow. So something was definitely going on. Looks like they were desperately losing power. Their power systems were failing. I am wondering if somehow water leaked into the back of the... Now, we know that a lot of experts will tell us, okay, if a little, even a pinhole of water gets in there, it's going to send like a laser beam of water in there that'll slice your arm off, which is true. But these guys are sitting in here, and it may have started real small in there in the back as maybe a void, maybe enough voids or stress on the carbon fiber would allow just enough water to start collecting in the back end there and maybe weigh things down. We don't know. So let us know down in the comments below what you think about that. So now at 9:47, the top says understood. Continue ascent. Talking to Carlos about the power bus situation right now. And then they come back about a minute later and they say we're activating recovering procedures. Carlos is requesting wattage output from bus B. Status update, please. Velocity of ascent. And then a minute later they say top, we're not receiving you. Update, please. And then another minute after that they say status and depth report. So notice who's doing all of the communication here. This is all in green. This is the top side. This is the Polar Prince doing all of the talking. So this is why I think by now the sub has already imploded. So when do you think it imploded? Well, if we go back to here, look at this timestamp. 9:46:37 was their last transmitted message up to the boat. Not even a minute later, they're not getting a response. So I'm going to call it at 9:47 that it probably happened right before these guys sent this message. That would be probably a reasonable time to expect that that's when it happened. And remember, all the news reports say that they lost contact at about 9:45 in the morning. So this is not too far off. The last message from the Titan submarine to the boat would be this. If this is the original and authentic transcript, and it says right here, reading red on the A power bus, I switched to B at 3457 meters, more sounds aft. And well, the rest is history. We know what happened there. So if we look here, according to these timestamps, the duration of the Titan sub disaster, it started at 9:28:16, and I called it at 9:47. So it looks like the crew had nearly 19 minutes where they were in panic mode and managing the emergency. So this is totally scary. I have run this scenario through my brain just numerous times since day one. And I kept trying to put myself in that sub and going, what do you think they were going through? What would I be feeling? What would I be seeing? And it's just so scary to know that these guys spent 20 minutes in fear of their lives. And you can bet that Stockton Rush was probably trying to calm them down, going, hey, listen, guys, no, I've got the patent on this system here. It gives us hours of notice. We'll have plenty of time to get this submersible back up to the surface, and we'll be having drinks in no time. But of course, it didn't turn out that way. Everybody on the internet is arguing over whether this is an authentic transcript or not. And some are saying, well, this wasn't released officially, so this is probably fake news. How do we know this is real? How could anybody have gotten their hands on it? Well, remember, the submersible community is a very tight-knit community, man. And so somebody could have sent a copy to James Cameron. He said he knew the day after that something was wrong. He knew that they had dropped ballast. He knew they were at 3,500 meters. How did he know? Somebody probably sent him a copy of the transcript. Take a look at this. Tell us what you think. Robert McCallum, somebody might have sent it to him as well to look at. There was a lot of people working on that boat, and they could have sent it to friends and advisors to have them take a look at it and get their opinion as well. So it doesn't take long for stuff to start circulating around. You just never know. But we'll never know for sure until the officials release the transcript later on. And also make sure you binge watch the other videos that I've uploaded here on the Titanic disaster. And make sure you check out some of our other disaster videos. And also on this channel, we cover tours of the hardware stores like Home Depot, Lowe's, and even Costco, showing you what the latest, greatest big deals are there. So thank you so much for joining us today, folks, and we'll see all of you on the next one. We have plenty more to come.